With model railways becoming increasingly unaffordable these days, buying models second-hand has become a very popular topic of conversation. So in today's video I want to talk a little bit about buying second-hand models, the pros and cons of doing that, and also what to look out for to make sure you're getting what you expect. But first, let's talk about why you might want to buy second-hand models instead of buying brand new. A big one is availability. You've probably noticed that many new models, particularly popular ones, don't stay in stock at the retailers for very long before selling out. And this makes it very easy to miss out on new releases. And in many cases this is quite deliberate. Many manufacturers actually don't want their models to remain in stock for an extended period of time. This is because the retailers can't hold on to stock forever. Unsold stock takes up valuable space, and of course retailers have to sell models to make their living. So when a model doesn't sell out after a reasonable amount of time, the retailer may choose to discount it and sell it off cheap. That's great for us customers, but it's not very good for the retailer because it eats into their profit margin, and it's even worse for the manufacturer because it can devalue their product. If this happens often enough, it teaches us customers that if we wait and don't buy new models, we can get them much cheaper when they're discounted. And of course the manufacturers don't really want that. They would rather us pay as much as possible for their products. So what they do is they only produce just enough models to satisfy demand. They'll produce enough to cover all of the pre-orders, plus a few extra for new sales, and however many that is up to them, but sometimes it's not all that many. And it's only really when the manufacturers miscalculate this that we see a product stay in stock for an extended period of time and then possibly get discounted. So that means that these days, if you choose not to buy a new model immediately, there's a strong chance you will miss out on it altogether. However, the second-hand market might see these models crop up again from time to time, which is one good reason why you might want to go second-hand. Second-hand is also a great way to pick up older models that haven't been produced for a good number of years. Take Hornby for instance. Each year they only actively produce models from a tiny number of the toolings they have at their disposal. And there are Hornby models that haven't been produced for years. Now sure, you can wait around and hope that Hornby will produce this model again and buy it new, but you could be waiting decades for that to happen, or in some cases Hornby may never produce that model again. Going second-hand though means that you could get that model today, if you can find it of course. And also older second-hand models tend to be quite a bit cheaper as well, which is also a benefit. This leads us on to the next advantage of buying second-hand, and that is price. New models are expensive. Some of them might be more reasonable than others. £169 for instance might be a very fair price for the latest Accurascale locomotive, but it's still a heck of a lot to spend during a cost of living crisis. Buying second-hand can save you quite a bit of money. But there's also a lot to be careful of when buying second-hand models. You've got to make sure you're getting a reasonable price, you've got to check the condition of models to make sure you're getting what you're expecting, and you've also got to be quite careful of who you buy these models from. Let's start first of all with price. Going second-hand can be a great way to get a bargain, but you can also quite easily get ripped off, with some sellers charging way over the odds. To get around this, it's really important to do some research into what constitutes a good price for the model you're looking for. So you need to check other websites, have a look at what they cost new, and figure out exactly what a good price for this would be. And bear in mind it can be quite a bit more complicated than you might expect. For example, different liveries can fetch different amounts of money. The Bachmann C-Class, for instance, in BR Black fetches about £100 second-hand, but exactly the same model but in the SECR Green can fetch literally double the price. And that's not just the sellers being greedy either, that is genuinely what people are willing to pay for that model. Also, if it's a locomotive, bear in mind that if it's DCC fitted or DCC sound fitted, then it could be worth quite a bit more than it would be if it was just on analog, so that's also worth paying attention to. So if you're buying online, shop around, see what other prices are available, and make sure you're not paying too much. Another great option for getting a bargain online is through online auctions, and eBay is a pretty popular one. This means that rather than paying a set price as dictated by a seller, you're actually bidding against other customers who also want the item. And it's the customer who is willing to pay the most that wins the auction. Now this can go one of two ways. If it's a popular item and lots of people are bidding for it, you're unlikely to get a good price, although you can pretty much guarantee you won't be paying more than others are willing to pay for it. However, if you get lucky and there's nobody else or very few others looking to bid for the same item, then you can get that item for a song. So online auctions can be really useful. If you're buying from a physical model shop, I would say you've got to be even more careful with price. I would suggest trying to plan ahead with your purchases, try to figure out what you're interested in ahead of time, and do some research online to figure out what constitutes a good price. Then, if the asking price is too high, you can either avoid it or make an offer. There's actually no shame in making an offer for a model if you think the asking price is too high. They might well turn you down if you're unreasonable, but it doesn't hurt to ask, and you could get 10% or so shaved off. Worth a try at the very least, I think. The next thing to look out for is model condition. Now, I would consider myself a savvy purchaser of model trains, but even I have become unstuck before. I've bought things from eBay thinking that they were in sound condition, only to find that they weren't. So you have got to be really careful, no matter how experienced you are. Models can depreciate over time, especially locomotives. If they've been in storage for a long time, their performance can degrade, driving gears can split because of old lubricant stagnating on them, or in rare cases, their metal chassis can crumble away due to defects such as Mazak rot. Alternatively, because it's second-hand, a previous owner might have caused damage to a model through neglect, and this damage might not always be that easy to spot. So it's important to be extremely attentive. If you're buying online, you need to study photos carefully. If the seller provided poor quality photos, then I would recommend avoiding the listing, it's not worth it, or asking them for better quality ones. Taking some time to look at photos properly can really help you spot signs of neglect or damage. Another thing you should do is pay close attention to product descriptions and go over every single word very carefully. Most online sellers will be completely honest and upfront with you about any problems with a model. But at the end of the day, they're trying to make a sale, so you can't blame them if they don't always put this information up front and center. And I've fallen afoul of this before on eBay. A couple of times the phrase non-runner was included hidden away at the bottom of a description on a model that otherwise looked to be in great condition. And I bought it thinking I was getting a great bargain, and then the thing didn't work and I had to faff around trying to make repairs. So to get around this, pay close attention to the product descriptions. Then you know that the condition and the running order of a model is exactly what you're expecting. And also, if you try to return a model because of a defect that was disclosed, at the very least you might have to arrange and pay for the return postage, or at most the seller may choose not to help you. On the other hand, if you buy a model online and it has an issue that wasn't disclosed, don't forget you have the right to return it free of charge, and the seller should also cover the postage cost. If you know exactly how the model was described because you checked the description very carefully, then that should help you make that case. If you're not buying online and you're buying in person, let's say at a model shop or an exhibition, this issue is actually much easier to overcome. It's just a case of being a bit brave. So first of all, don't be afraid to ask to see the model. Most model shops or exhibitors will allow you to have a close look at anything you want to buy, and if they're super generous, they might even let you handle it for yourself so that you can inspect the model. Next, don't hesitate to ask to see a model running. Most model shops have a test layout or a test track, and this can be a really simple way to check that a model is working properly. If you're at an exhibition and there isn't a test track available, I would suggest bringing a 9-volt battery along with you. By placing the 9-volt battery against the wheels of a loco, you can quite easily check that it works. This isn't as effective as trying it on a proper layout or something like that, but it is a good way of telling the difference between a dead loco and a working loco. Just remember to ask permission before you start powering a loco, just in case a model shop owner is a bit funny about it. And finally, remember that the model shops are there to help you. If you buy something from a model shop and there's a problem with it after an unreasonable amount of time, don't be shy to take it back to the shop to see if they can help. Also, if you're at an exhibition or a show, something like that, it's worth asking for a business card, and that way you know who the model came from and you know who to contact if there's a problem with it. For all of this stuff though, there is one major rule of thumb to stand by, and that is this: do not try to make any repairs to models yourself unless you're willing to take full responsibility. By law, the moment you've done anything at all to try and repair an item, the seller no longer is obliged to offer you a refund. So tempting as it always is to try and fix a minor issue by yourself, if something goes wrong, then you're completely on your own. So no matter what it is, if you've just bought something and it's got a problem, take it back, return it. Yes, it's inconvenient, but at least this way you'll end up with either your money back or a working model. Obviously, repairing second-hand models is a huge part of model railways, but you should only be doing that if you've knowingly bought a faulty model, hopefully cheaply, to fix yourself. It's a very different kettle of fish to buy a model that is described as good and working, and then you have to repair it yourself. You should never have to do that, and I don't recommend doing it. Take it back, let the seller deal with it. That's always the best way to go. This leads us on to the next thing to be quite careful of: warranty. Most new models do come with some sort of warranty which protects against defects for a certain length of time. Usually it's a year. With other models it can be longer than a year, or with Accurascale it can be for a lifetime. With second hand though, obviously it does work a little bit differently. Surprisingly, some model shops do actually offer a warranty on second hand purchases. I was surprised when I found that out. Hatton's used to, for instance. Other model shops though might not be the same. So when you're buying second hand from a model shop or something similar, I would say it's worth finding out what their warranty or refunds policy is before you make a purchase, and if they offer one, then you know you're protected, at least for a while. Also, bear in mind if you're buying things from an online marketplace like eBay or Facebook, you're unlikely to find an individual that offers warranties. So let's say you buy a Loco from Facebook Marketplace and then you contact the seller a year later because you've got a problem with it, they'll probably tell you to go away. Now, there's not an awful lot you can do about this, but there is one thing that you can do that will help, and that is to thoroughly and completely test a model the moment you get it home. So check that all of the details are intact, check that there are no problems at all with the performance, and if you find something and you raise that issue within 14 days of the purchase, by law that seller should offer you a full refund or a replacement, regardless of who they are. The law states that a seller must offer a full refund if an item is faulty, not as described, or does not do what it's supposed to. So know your rights and don't take any nonsense if somebody tries to take advantage of you. So those are my thoughts and some tips on buying second hand. I think some people are quite frightened of buying second hand items, and that's understandable because there are pitfalls, as I've talked about today. However, as long as you're vigilant and you know your rights and you study photos and descriptions really carefully, there's really not a lot that can go wrong and you can save a lot of money. But anyway, do you buy second hand? Have you got any tips and tricks on how to do it safely and effectively? Please do comment down below and let me know. For now though, hopefully this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again really soon for some more videos. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.